Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Brews with Brian, a craft beer review podcast. Craft beer is beer that is brewed in smaller breweries, not these big corporate machine breweries that we're all aware of. Craft beer takes time and patience, and the people that brew this stuff care about the product they are delivering to us, and I couldn't be more thankful. On this week's episode, I'm reviewing Gates of Smordor from Westbrook Brewing Company, Bigfoot from Sierra Nevada Brewing Company, and 10W-40 King Cake from Highwire Brewing. Now you can find the show on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube, and Spotify. So don't forget to tell your friends and spread the word. But let's kick this show off. And the first beer on this week's show is Gates of Smordor from Westbrook Brewing Company out of Mount Pleasant, South Carolina. Gates of Smordor has an ABV of 11% and a rotating availability. The description from the website says, Imperial Stout brewed with marshmallows, graham crackers, cocoa nibs, and cinnamon. This beer pours pitch black, almost like motor oil, with a one-finger mocha-colored head. It's got decent retention, hangs in at a very solid cap. Light and spotty lacing is also there. The aroma is of rich and roasty malt, dark and bitter chocolate, dark fruit such as raisins, some spicy notes. It's got to be a product of the cinnamon, but not really identifiable as cinnamon. Vanilla's there. After about 10 minutes of letting this thing rest and warm up, you can really pick up the vanilla, which is the marshmallow in the beer. Tasting the beer is starting off, it's dark chocolate and light vanilla. Cinnamon is up front and persistent. Bitter, dark roast malt. Light coffee grounds. Some latte spices, almost chili pepper-like, and it could be the cinnamon. Searching for graham cracker, and I think it's more prevalent in the flavor than the aroma, and only after a serious warming and the second pour, because it's in a big bottle. This beer is full-bodied, thick, and velvety. Very low carbonation. It's got some boozy heat. A long and rich malty finish, semi-sweet but not cloying. It's a seriously flavorful and very big Imperial Stout. It's very good. Westbrook hit it out of the park again, like they have with everything else I've tried from them. So if you can find this, you gotta get it. You gotta try it. It's fantastic. But overall, I'm gonna give Gates of Smordor from Westbrook Brewing Company 5 stars. And the next beer on this week's show is Bigfoot by Sierra Nevada Brewing Company out of Chico, California. Bigfoot has an ABV of 9.6% and a wintertime availability. The description from the website says, Bigfoot is a beast of a beer, brimming with bold flavors of bittersweet malt and heaps of aggressive whole cone Pacific Northwest hops. First introduced in the winter of 1983, Bigfoot is a cult classic beer brewed in the barley wine style, meaning a strong, robust bruiser of a beer with the refined intensity of a wine. Bigfoot is prized by beer collectors for its supreme cellarability. Under the proper conditions, it can age like a fine wine, developing new flavors and characters as it matures in the bottle. Each new release or expedition is a vintage dated. Collect your own and see the flavors develop in progress. This beer pours a deep mahogany hue. It's beyond caramel, beyond amber, but not brown. Stained mahogany with deep red highlights, excellent clarity and topped with 2 fingers of dense sandy head that slowly recedes to a giant cap, leaving some irregular, albeit tenacious lacing. Plentiful, visible effervescence rising to feed the cap. The aroma is actually a touch muted, but presents itself with plenty of deep, caramelized crystal malt, which lends a ton of caramel and toffee, much like you would expect from a Sierra Nevada IPA, but the malt is much firmer, taking things a step further with brown sugar, dried cherry, fig, raisin, date, and some other dark fruit notes. The aggressive hopping with classic West Coast hops brings a bouquet of pine and classic floral notes with a hint of juicy grapefruit and tangerine. It presents itself much like a big malty Imperial IPA would on the nose. This beer greets the palate with a big malty sweetness that opens up with cherry, raisin, fig, brown sugar, and toffee, which is immediately overtaken by an absolute bombardment of Centennial and Cascade hops. An early and biting resinous bitterness cuts through the malt sweetness, bringing sappy, resinous pine and a metric ton of grapefruit pith, as well as all the other predictable floral notes that you would expect from any West Coast IPA. The finish dries the beer out considerably, with the resinous hops continuing to increase in pithy bitterness. The malt falls back, leaving all that bitter hop resins to linger with dry floral notes, grapefruit rind, and pine sap. From start to finish, I think anyone drinking this blind would guess that it was some kind of IPA. The mouthfeel is the one element of this beer that lends more towards a barley wine than any other. Right out of the gate, Bigfoot has a big, bold, sticky malt delivery, full-bodied with a bit of chewy viscosity at room temperature. Effervescence is pretty lively for the ABV and semi-fine in nature, also keeping in line with the Imperial IPA theme. Quite sticky up front with a hint of a syrupy texture, then becoming quite dry in the finish, with slick hop oils coating the palate. I really enjoyed this beer. I pretty much enjoy everything I've had from Sierra Nevada. They've been around forever, and they know what they're doing. But this did seem more like an IPA to me than it did a barley wine, which I've not had a ton of barley wines, but I've had a lot of IPAs, and this really fits what I'm used to. But overall, I'm going to give Bigfoot from Sierra Nevada Brewing Company 4 stars. And the final beer on this week's show is 10W-40 King Cake from Highwire Brewing out of Asheville, North Carolina. 10W-40 King Cake has an ABV of 8% and a rotating availability. The description from the website says Imperial Stout brewed with coffee, chocolate, vanilla, lactose, and cinnamon. The beer pours almost black with a nice fluffy khaki head that fades, leaving nice retention and lacing. The aromas have pecans and hazelnuts leading the way. Some vanilla cream and milk chocolate are there as well as some dark roasted malts. The flavors basically follow the nose for the most part, more pecans and hazelnuts leading the way, along with some vanilla. Then you get more milk chocolate, and then the coffee is subtle and can be hard to pick up. The cinnamon is pretty mild as well and basically goes unnoticed. The lactose is there and it comes through really well. This one has a nice sweetness, but it's nothing cloying or over the top at all. It's got a strong malt backbone, and the alcohol is well hidden. The mouthfeel is full-bodied with moderate carbonation. It's fluffy, slightly creamy and velvety, smooth, and dangerously drinkable. This is a pretty nice version of the base beer, which is 10W-40. Their horchata is probably my favorite, but this one was really good. I really enjoyed it. Highwire is becoming probably my new favorite brewery. Everything they do is fantastic that I've had. So check out 10W-40 King Cake. You will not be disappointed. In fact, check out anything from Highwire and you'll enjoy it. But overall, I'm going to give 10W-40 King Cake 3 stars. And that's going to do it for this week's episode of Brews with Brian. I want to thank everybody for listening. The show continues to grow each and every week, so thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You can find the show on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube, and Spotify. So don't forget to tell your friends that enjoy craft beer, and maybe they'll enjoy listening to me talk about it. But on this week's show, I reviewed Gates of Smordor from Westbrook Brewing Company, Bigfoot from Sierra Nevada Brewing Company, and 10W-40 King Cake from Highwire Brewing Company. I want to give a special shout out to Southern Package, Sheffield, Alabama, where I buy all my craft beer. Wonderful people. Can't say enough nice things about them. So if you live in Northwest Alabama, go there to buy your beer. You will not regret that decision at all. But that's going to do it for this week's episode of Brews with Brian, and we'll see you next time.